These are the top 5 strangest cemeteries. Now, just because one is 5 and one is 1, it doesn't mean anything. These are not ranked in a particular order. So we're going to start with number 1, the new Lucky Restaurant. If you could be buried in one of these strange cemeteries, put in the comments down below, or if you know of an even stranger cemetery, let me know. The new Lucky Restaurant in India is known for its popular menu, spacious seating, and also the exposed gravestones and burial sarcophagi that the tables are set up around. When the new owner of New Lucky's was faced with the fact that the land he was to open his restaurant on was in fact a cemetery, he decided to capitalize on the dilemma. Instead of paving over the graves or just moving them, he simply built his restaurant around them, actually making the burial plots the main attraction. Steel bars have been erected around the graves so that no one will tread on the deceased. But other than that small protection, the dead you are with are just your dinner companions. No one is even sure who the graves belong to, but the theory is they belong to Muslim followers around the 16th century. The displayed graves in the restaurant are not meant to be disrespectful or overly morbid. In fact, the owner claims that eating in the presence of the dead is good luck, or at least it has been for him, and his business has been flourishing as a popular local hangout for more than a decade. Each morning the graves are clean and fresh flowers are placed near them out of respect. The green stone coffins are scattered around the restaurant in a random pattern, and customers have to navigate their way to get to their tables. The new Lucky's name might seem ironic considering how many dead people are buried there, but if their business is any indicator, the name fits it perfectly. Who would have thought you could go see something like that while you're eating at a restaurant? So let's go on to number 2, which is the Neptune Reef. The Neptune Memorial Reef was conceived as the world's largest man-made reef, covering over 600,000 square feet of the ocean floor at a depth of 40 feet. The city design involves an underwater road leading to a central feature with benches and a sanctuary. The place was chosen at 3¼ miles off the coast of Key Biscayne, Florida. It is a type of burial at sea, and the first phase is estimated to be able to accommodate 850 remains, with an eventual goal of more than 125,000 remains. Though often referred to in news articles as an underwater mausoleum or underwater cemetery, the Neptune Society Memorial Reef meets the criterion for neither. Cremated remains are mixed with cement to form features of the reef, and memorial plaques are added. The reef is more correctly identified as a cremation memorial site, opened in 2007 after a number of difficulties, including permits. After an extensive evaluation and permitting process, the Atlantis Reef Project has been permitted by the EPA, NOAA, Florida Fish and Wildlife, and the Army Corps of Engineers. The reef stretches across 16 acres of ocean floor, designed as both a home for sea life and a destination for divers. The Neptune Memorial Reef lies in a special management zone. Boaters and divers are welcome, but no fishing or lobster taking is allowed. Now that reef building coral have developed on the site, the reef can properly be identified as a coral reef. The Neptune Memorial Reef is actively working the site and expanded from less than an acre to its original 16. One of the people that's buried there is famed chef personality Julia Child. She was interred in the reef upon her death in 2004. So what do you think about the reef? Do you think it should expand, or should they stay, or how do you feel about that in general? Let me know in the comments. Number 3, the Mary Cemetery. When someone dies, their memory generally enters a kind of idealized state in the minds of those who love them. Their flaws are forgiven and forgotten, and the way in which they passed, especially if it was unpleasant, often goes unspoken. Only the sweet stories about the person are retold. But there's a cemetery in Romania. It's famous for its brightly colored tombstones with paintings describing in an original and poetic manner the people who are buried there, in addition to scenes from their lives. The Mary Cemetery became an open-air museum and a national tourist attraction. The unusual feature of this cemetery is that it diverges from the prevalent belief culturally shared with other European societies, a belief that views death as something solemn. Connections with the local culture have been made, and a culture whose tenets presumably vouched for the immortality of the soul and the belief that death was a moment filled with joy and anticipation for a better life. In 1908, at the age of 14, Stan had already began carving crosses for the local cemetery. By 1935, he began carving clever or ironic poems, done in a rough local dialect, about the deceased, as well as painting the crosses with the deceased image, often including the way in which the person died. Isn't that a very strange cemetery? How they write everything and the poems, whether it's good or bad. I just find it, to me, that one may be the most fascinating. Let's move to number 4, spirit burial houses. A combination of Russian Orthodox tradition and Native American practices, the graveyard outside of St. Nicholas Orthodox Church in Alaska is filled with more than 100 colorful burial sites. These fantastic spirit houses are about the size of a large dollhouse. Located about 25 miles outside of Anchorage, Alaska, the site of many Native American villages about 800 years ago, today is filled with people who are descendants of that tribe, and also Russian Orthodox missionaries arrived in that area around 1830, and the two communities slowly became one, especially after a smallpox epidemic wiped out half of their population. Dating back to about 1650, the village that surrounds the park is the area's oldest continually inhabited settlement. On its grounds are the still active cemetery, the St. Nicholas, and the Second Orthodox Church. Before the Russian Orthodox missionaries arrived, it was customary for the natives to cremate their dead. The ashes were usually put into a birch bark basket and placed in a tree or by a riverbank, in the belief that that would free the spirits to make their final journey to what the natives call the high country. When customs started to blend and mix, they began burying their dead in the cemetery built up around the church. When a body was first buried, a blanket is placed over the grave to warm and comfort the soul as it transitioned. 40 days later, the spirit box is placed over the blanket and family members painted in colors that have represented their name for generations. But unlike in many cemeteries throughout the U.S., the memorial is not kept up, in keeping with native tradition, which says that which is taken from the earth must be allowed to return. The spirit houses are left to decay and crumble over the years. Isn't that strange how a particular custom can change over time, as they started with the cremation, and then once the new religion came, the new religion compromised with the older religion, and they still found a compromise, which is still nice. This day and time, that really doesn't happen. So, number 5, to me, is the strangest one of all, and that's the hanging coffins. Let's get to it. Traditional burials in hanging coffins only take place every few years or so now. One of the most common beliefs behind this practice is that moving the bodies of the dead higher up brings them closer to their ancestral spirits. The coffins are either tied or nailed to the sides of the cliffs, and most measure only about 1 meter in length. As the corpse is buried in the fetal position, the native tribe believes that a person should depart the same way he entered the world. The deceased is then placed on a death chair, and the corpse is tied with vines and then covered in a blanket. The cadaver is smoked to prevent fast decomposition and as a means to conceal its rotting smell. Before being taken for burial, it is secured in the fetal position with the legs pulled up towards the chin. It is then wrapped again in a blanket and tied with leaves. When the procession reaches the burial site, young men climb up on the side of the cliff and place the corpse inside a hollowed-out lumber coffin. The bones are cracked to fit the corpse into a small space, which is then sealed with vines. Isn't that one? Now, to me, that one, out of all the 5 that we've done so far, that one, how they put them back in the fetal position and they rewrap them and all of that stuff, that, to me, is, I think, the wildest one. But yeah, if you have any other ideas of any other ones, let me know. Comment down below. If you could have a strange burial or be buried at one of these places or anything like that, just put it down in the comments. I love to hear everybody's input. So with that being said, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this top 5. Working on another one, hopefully coming soon. Yeah, more content's coming. I hope you enjoy everything. Thanks for watching. Don't forget the like, subscribe, share. I have to say that. I don't have to, but it helps the algorithm because sometimes people forget, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that pushes the channel and it helps us grow, and it keeps me motivated to make the things that I do because you guys enjoy watching, and I can't thank you enough. It's because of you where this channel is. And I don't want you to forget that. So thank you so much, and I'll see you guys on the next one.